We're standing on the edge of a massive winter transformation, with ferocious cold blasts and significant snow potential poised to dominate the coming month. Welcome in, everyone. Happy Wednesday, November 19th. We've been dissecting this developing pattern shift for weeks, and now it's finally close enough to materialize clearly inside the model data. All those major large-scale climate influencers, we've been discussing the MJO, the polar vortex, and all the other sophisticated atmospheric skew mechanisms are finally beginning to synchronize within the short-range guidance. Today, I'm breaking down everything in detail. I'll give you the deep dive analysis I don't have time for on television, and deliver the most up-to-the-minute information. If you're new here, a huge welcome. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It's the simplest way to stay weather-wise and ensures these updates reach you instantly, especially with the hyperactive pattern that's heading our way. And of course, it's completely free. Now, let's jump right in. Beside me is our European AI model. Those two powerful letters and I rapidly reshaping the entire world of weather forecasting. After a year of evaluation, these AI-driven systems have proven astonishingly accurate, often outperforming our traditional physics-based models like the classic Euro and the GFS. And what are they showing us? They're reinforcing every signal we've been discussing. We're heading into a fairly warm stretch for another 5 or 6 days, but then the flip begins. Those deep blues start plunging into the eastern United States. I fully expect multiple cold waves with a powerful, widespread blast of cold right after Thanksgiving for nearly everyone east of the Rockies. And as December begins, another major surge of Arctic air is on the table. Its exact placement is still being debated, but we'll explore every possibility in this breakdown. When cold air increases, snow chances rise automatically, especially as we enter December. When climatology finally starts working in our favor. Before the long-range outlook, here's a quick near-term update. We won't linger long. I know most of you are here for the snow discussion, but we do have a warm-up first. You can already see it in the satellite imagery. Notice the jet stream arching northward today. That's what's pulling in warmer air. A new storm system is gearing up, capable of delivering rainfall, a touch of severe weather, and even snow for some areas. But this one is much warmer than the last few systems, clearly reflected in that buckling jet stream lifting energy north. As for the radar, we picked up some snow yesterday. If you're watching from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Michigan, New York, or Connecticut, drop a comment and tell me what you observed. I was completely asleep during the event, so let me know. Did you wake up to any accumulation? Or maybe just white rain snowflakes that melt instantly on contact? I always appreciate those on-the-ground reports. We've also got scattered rain in the Dakotas and Minnesota, plus moisture building in the desert Southwest, where our next storm is taking shape. And by the way, quick shout out to someone who emailed me yesterday. No names, since I'm not sure they'd want that publicly shared, but your kind message truly made my day. If you ever want to reach out, my social links are in the description. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Here's the near-term model breakdown. Across the eastern United States, conditions stay relatively quiet for the moment. Zooming out, you can clearly see that next storm organizing across Texas and Oklahoma today. By Thursday morning, widespread rain stretches from the Ozarks through Oklahoma and into New Mexico. Eastern U.S. remains calm for now, but that system shifts northward. By Thursday night, rainfall spreads into Kansas and Colorado while continuing across Oklahoma and Texas. Severe weather is possible on the southern flank, so stay weather aware. By late Thursday into Friday morning, that rain expands through the Tennessee and Ohio valleys. Colorado is seeing some snow, but as I mentioned earlier, this is primarily a warm-leaning system. Most of the real snow action is still bottled up in Canada, and the setup simply isn't cold. Enough yet for widespread winter weather across the U.S. Let me show you what it looks like on the zoomed-out view. This is the European model. You can see a soaking stretch ahead for the Four Corners and Southern Plains through Thursday before the system shifts eastward. By Friday evening, it becomes more of a scattered, showery event. As I noted before, a few severe storms are possible, not an all-out outbreak, but worth monitoring as this system slides through the Ohio Valley and finally exits by Saturday afternoon. Some showers and thunderstorms linger over the mid-Atlantic, but the majority of the country quiets down. And that calm pattern lasts until right around here next Monday and Tuesday. That's when the true pattern change initiates. Right before Thanksgiving, cold air starts diving south, and we may see a storm system attempt to link up with that incoming chill. From that point forward, we begin transitioning into a much more winter-dominated regime. So now, let's get to what you've all been waiting for. Let's break down the when, where, how strong, and why behind the upcoming winter shift. Drumroll please. It's time for the nerdy stuff, the deep core meteorology I can never squeeze into a TV segment. We're pulling up the 500 dem B height anomaly map. Beginning with the classic European model, the physics-based Euro, then we'll look at the European AI model, the new powerhouse in the forecasting world. After that, we'll dive into the European ensembles. And yes, I know what you're thinking. Gerald, why not show the GFS? Well, the truth is, simple, the GFS has struggled this year. So we're focusing on the models performing at the top of the class to give you a clearer, more reliable forecast. Here's what they're all telling us. In the short term, every model I'm about to show agrees. A strong ridge is about to flex over the eastern US, those bright orange and red shades on the map, that's our heat miser territory. The blues represent snow miser, real estate areas primed for colder air and storm energy. But blue doesn't automatically guarantee snow, so don't start planning your snowball fight yet. It just sets the stage. Whether it becomes a winter event depends on a much more complicated recipe. Some places have a much easier time producing snow than others. So when does the pattern truly flip? We might get a small slice of cold air slipping out of Hudson Bay and brushing the northeast this weekend. But the first legitimate cold surge arrives right here next Tuesday. Look closely. You can see cold air beginning to organize and pour south out of Canada. It doesn't look impressive at first glance, but trust MIT, grows fast. Meanwhile, you've got shortwave energy bubbling across the southern states. If those ingredients merge, we could be staring at a wintry system across the central and northern US in about a week. That's the time frame. Pushing the model ahead. You see them link up hand, then bam right after Thanksgiving, on Black Friday. A significant block of cold air nosedives into the eastern US. It won't be a snow day for everyone. But some areas could absolutely squeeze out snowflakes that weekend as we transition from Thanksgiving into early December. Bottom line, cold air is back on the menu. It's set to smash the warm pattern many of us have been sitting under. And yes, I know some of you in the Northeast never warmed up in the first place. But nationally, this is where the flip happens. Then watch what the model shows. The ridge tries to fight back as December begins, attempting a warm rebound in the east, but it's short-lived. Because a much stronger, deeper Arctic blast is waiting upstream, locked into a direct Arctic connection. The blue shading stretches from northern Canada straight down into the US at the end of the model run. That's from the classic European model, our most reliable long-range tool. Still, when we're looking this far ahead, we apply some caution. Now let's look at the other two models. We're pulling up the European AI next, the new kid rewriting the rules of forecasting, and after that, the ensembles, the gold standard for pattern confidence this time of year. And yes, we save the best for last around here. The European AI model has been performing remarkably well lately, so let's take a look at what it's generating. For the short term, it's in full agreement with the classic Euro, a strong ridge dominating the eastern US with a small pocket of energy dipping into the northeast. But pause it right. Here this model also shows that by next Monday and Tuesday, things begin to accelerate. We see a punch of cold air dropping into the northern Rockies with a compact shortwave sliding just to the south. Now, if that southern shortwave outruns the incoming cold, our winter weather prospects diminish. But the model still develops the system regardless. Just like the physics-based Euro, shows a deep trough of cold air carving into the eastern US right after Thanksgiving. Interestingly, the AI version is a bit more aggressive, hinting at the possibility of a chilly Thanksgiving day itself. The classic Euro keeps Thanksgiving relatively mild and pushes the real cold into Black Friday and the weekend. But both agree on something key. The cold snap is brief. It's quick, it's sharp, and then it fades. The reason? We lack a dominant Greenland block. To lock cold air into the east, You need those intense red height anomalies parked over Greenland acting as a traffic jam for the jet stream. Right now, we simply don't have that. So, this cold shot is more of a drive-by visit rather than a long-term stay. However, more rounds are coming. Another surge of cold appears on the AI model around December 1st out west and drifts eastward by December. Third or fourth lining up extremely well with the primary Euro. So, putting the two together, here's the sequence. A cold blast right after Thanksgiving. A brief warm-up in the east, and then another cold punch. The million-dollar question is where exactly that second blast locks in, and now the ensembles. This is where all the data merges into one big picture consensus. Let me rewind and give you a quick spoiler. First, the ridge dominates the short-term weave, hammered that point home already. Then the ensemble showed the same major cold surge hitting right after Thanksgiving. But again night doesn't linger. The ensembles push the next cold wave back into the Rockies. And then, slowly over the 10 to 15-day window. It begins nudging eastward. But here's the important part. Stubborn ridge tries to reassert itself in the eastern U.S., and I'm going to be honest, if you're east of the Appalachians. Your snow chances through December 4th or 5th do not look great right now. Could that change? Absolutely. But the current signal suggests that ridge will be a party crasher for early December snow lovers in the east. Now, the good news? I don't think that ridge holds on forever. In fact, I believe we kick off this winter pattern with better early season snow chances for the plains, the Midwest, and potentially the Ohio Valley. And then deeper into December snow opportunities begin to shift eastward. Why? Because I think the now may turn slightly positive at the start of December. That positions the trough just a little farther west than ideal. Meanwhile, the MJO is running behind schedule. But once it enters a favorable phase around mid-December, the pattern becomes far more supportive of eastern snow. And here's the silver lining. Letting the plains and northern tier build early season snowpack actually helps the pattern later. Snowpack reinforces cold air, sharpens thermal gradients, and enhances storm development once the east becomes favorable. So no, it doesn't mean zero snow before then, but it does mean patience will likely pay off for eastern snow lovers. Now that the big picture is in place. Let's talk about the potential Thanksgiving storm itself before diving into the teleconnections. In the European model, you can see the system organizing by Monday or Tuesday. Check the timestamp above. My head, 10 a.m. November 4th. As we advance the model, you'll notice this storm isn't a major snow producer for most of us. Canada gets slammed by an intense blizzard, but the U.S. side sees cold air lagging too far behind the system. So instead of widespread snow, we're looking at a chilly, raw rain for many. By Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, we're dealing with scattered showers and thunderstorms. Then, by Thanksgiving afternoon, the front finally surges forward. I want to see these blue contours I'm tracing in pink? Because of course, I didn't use blue. That would be far too logical. That's the cold front bulldozing its way in. And by the time Black Friday arrives, that cold air is fully entrenched. And right there, you can clearly see the first major surge of cold air diving in. I should also mention, it is packing some serious lake effect snow potential. You can already see those bands firing across the Northeast and the Great Lakes. This pattern definitely has some muscle behind it. But for the storm itself, the Euro continues to favor mainly rain, at least for now. Now let's flip over to the GFS. Let me rewind, didn't mean to take you that far into Fantasyland. That little glimpse was straight out of La La Land. And as my buddy Mitch West always says, that's a forecast, times not times reality. Huge grain of salt required. But here's the GFS depiction of the Thanksgiving storm. We've got that southern shortwave sliding through. This is Monday afternoon as it pushes across the Ohio Valley. Again, look up north. Cold air is trailing too far behind for a true winter storm to form. Right now, the ingredients simply aren't lining up for a major snow event. Still, the GFS does generate rain on Tuesday, followed by a much drier setup on Wednesday. Then we hit Thanksgiving and Black Friday, and here it comes. Cold air sinking south and stirring up some odd little mischief in the Carolinas. Are we realistically getting snow in the Carolinas on Black Friday? I'm extremely skeptical. But that is what the GFS is hinting at. More importantly, it also lights up the lake effect machine across the Northeast in full force. So there you have it. The two main models for the Thanksgiving system. Not a blockbuster, but a stage setter. It drags cold air south, resets the pattern, starts laying the groundwork for stronger snow chances as we move deeper into the season. One of the biggest pieces of that puzzle, teleconnections. So let's dig into those .NAO phase critical for East Coast snow. This is where long-range forecasting gets genuinely fun. We're about to dive into the even nittier, grittier details, starting with the polar vortex. It's the famous buzzword seasonal forecasters love to use for clicks. Yes, myself included. But what is it really? And will it play a role this winter? The polar vortex is essentially a massive spinning reservoir of brutally cold air trapped over the water. Arctic basically where Santa is warming up the reindeer as we speak. When it weakens, many people mistakenly assume that means less cold. In reality, a weakening vortex is good news for snow lovers. A weakened vortex loses its grip and starts releasing Arctic air southward. But there's a catch. Where does it go? Sometimes it spills into Siberia or Europe. Sometimes it hits the western US, and sometimes it targets the east. There is no automatic guarantee for cities like Cleveland, Chicago, New York, Charlotte, or Atlanta. That's why we look at diagnostics like this U-line chart. Let me draw a pink line. This is our baseline. Realistically, we're right around here. Notice all these lines plunging downward. Each one is a different ensemble solution. Any member that dips below the pink baseline, which I'll circle in black signals, a weakening vortex and increased probability of releasing cold into the mid-latitudes. And right now, a lot of members are showing exactly that timing. Early December. That means the cold shot after Thanksgiving probably isn't even tied to the vortex. It's more of a traditional Arctic frontal blast, the kind that brings the bone-chilling, face-stinging cold. And that aligns with the stronger cold shot we've been eyeing for the first week of December. Where's the bullseye? At the moment, the planes seem favored, but this absolutely can shift. And based on the ensemble spread, the vortex signal stays negative through perhaps the first half of December. And take a look at this graphic. Notice phases 1, 2, and 8. I'll circle them here. These are the money phases, the premium cold-favoring stages of the MJO for the eastern United States. If you're rooting for wintry weather, these are the phases you want to see locked in. Across these phases, the U.S. map is coated in blue shading, signaling widespread cooler than normal conditions. The image is a bit fuzzy, but trust me, the signal is there loud and clear. Now, the other phases, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, those are your warmer, less winter-friendly phases. So where are we right now? At the moment, we're sitting in phase 6, which is decidedly warm. Remember, the cold phases are 8, 1, and 2, and phase 6 is absolutely not one of them. Over the next several days and into early December, we rotate into phase 7, another warmer phase. And that's one of the key reasons that stubborn southeast ridge may continue to linger. The MJO simply isn't supporting cold yet, but once we push into mid-December, or just after the first week, the MJO finally begins rotating into phase 1. And that, my friends, is when the wheels start turning in favor of colder, stormier weather. So as I've been saying, snow chances rise after Thanksgiving for most of the country, but the east, especially areas east of the Appalachians, may need to be patient. The northern plains and Midwest look primed to score earlier winter hits. But a week or so into December, heading toward the holidays, the puzzle pieces begin sliding into place for the east as well. But that's not the only player. Let's talk about the now, another major teleconnection that can make or break early season snow chances. Here we go. The now, the North Atlantic Oscillation. It comes in two flavors, positive and negative. A negative now is basically your best friend if you live on the East Coast and want snow. Look at the left-hand graphic, a negative now. This forces the jet stream to take a deep dive into the eastern U.S., it's funneling cold air and supporting a storm track that can generate significant snow events. Meanwhile, a positive now flattens the jet stream into a more zonal west-to-east pattern, which brings milder air and a weaker, less organized storm track. Translation: if you want snow in the east, you're rooting hard for a negative NAO. So how's it looking over the next few weeks? Unfortunately, GFS ensembles show us climbing into a positive phase right up until about December 1st. I wish I had the European ensembles to cross-check, but that data isn't accessible to me right now. And right at that transition point, if I try to keep this black line visible, you can see the trend nudging upward into positive territory. That's exactly the kind of pattern that allows the southeast ridge to hang on longer than we'd like. And that's why early season cold in the east looks more like a revolving door. Cold swings in, pulls out, swings back in again, never fully locking into place. But look at the end of the run. Notice how a large cluster of ensemble members suddenly dives back into negative territory after the first week of December. If that happens, that is fantastic news for snow lovers across the East Coast. That would finally allow the Arctic air and the active storm. Track 2, shift out of the plains and slide toward the east. The spread of model solutions is big. It's plenty of members, still positive. Plenty negative, but the overall leaning is positive early, then trending negative later. And if that verifies, massive win for the east. Now let's move on to the last two maps. The snowfall probabilities from the ensembles. First up, the European ensembles. At the moment, they're not showing much for snow between now and Wednesday of next week. As I've said, the next several days look warm and honestly pretty dull for snow lovers. That's why we've got to zoom out and look farther ahead. But here we go, right around next Wednesday, we see that storm system churning in Canada. Could a fragment of that clip the northern US? Absolutely. Could it sync up with the cold air and generate snow? Also possible. We're watching it closely. The European ensemble also begins hinting at rising snow chances in the Rockies. Pushing the model forward, those probabilities creep eastward into the plains. Not high chances yet, but more than zero, and in long-range forecasting. That matters. But the bigger story remains the lake effect machine. Right after Thanksgiving, around November 29th, the ensembles light up with enhanced snow probabilities across the traditional lake effect belts of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New York. And as we keep playing the model forward, look what happens. Those snow chances expand into the plains and the Midwest. Now, for the East and Mid-Atlantic. That pesky southeast ridge still looks like a nuisance, likely keeping. The storm track sliding west to east across the northern tier. Does that annoy folks in the Carolinas, Virginia, and along the I-95 corridor? Of course. But this isn't bad news. The more early snowpack we build in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and surrounding areas, the better it is for us later. Snowpack reinforces cold air masses, strengthens thermal gradients, and makes the atmosphere more primed for future winter storms. If the pattern flips after that snow is already on the ground, it sets the stage beautifully for a potential mid-Atlantic or southeastern snowstorm by mid-December, exactly when a lot of folks want to see flakes flying now. Let's check the GFS ensembles. Same time frame, same idea. Here's that northern stream energy setting up for the middle of next week.